Good morning, Dan and Amy. Amy, I might as well disclose this. I've been outed.
Okay.
I've been outed on Twitter
Uh-oh.
by our producer, Mr. David Stripling. Really, it's the picture that says 1,000 words, the classic tale, caught red-handed. It's all there. Photographic evidence that I am, admittedly, the love child of Steve Bannon and Steve Carell. Which is...
Oh, I'm retweeting that.
So I mean, of course, because as people know, I'm a white supremacist.
Right. Well, you're racist, yeah.
Right.
KKK member. Yeah.
And a 40-year-old virgin. That's the combination. Oh, boy.
Nice work, David Stripling.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's cute. It's a good photo of you. And you actually, you know what? You are the perfect combo of Bannon and Steve Carell.
I'll tell you, they produce a handsome child.
They are. They should have created earlier. Yeah.
Well, now we have to get to more important matters that now that I've offered this disclosure to factor into everything else I have to say. The Ninth Circuit decision yesterday that upholds the injunction on Trump's temporary travel ban, the early morning hour confirmation of Dr. Tom Price, a straight party line vote, of course, Price to be HHS secretary, and the calls for Kellyanne to be put in the stocks in the public square for ridicule. Much to talk about, and to help us make sense of it all, we're pleased to be joined by A.B. Stoddard, associate editor and columnist at RealClearPolitics.com, and a Fox News contributor. A.B., thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So why don't we start with the Ninth Circuit? The Trump administration has a number of options, given the Ninth Circuit's holding. They could appeal to the Supreme Court. They could, it's been remanded back to the federal district court. They could litigate it at the district court level, or they could rewrite the order. Is there any early indication in terms of what Trump and the Justice Department may do in the case?
Well, I think Trump made it clear he wants to fight, and I think he'd like to see it go to the Supreme Court, and there are just wide ranges of opinion on. Some people are emphatic that he would lose there. Others would say it's a slam dunk, he would win. I think obviously the most prudent thing to do if he thinks there's a serious threat to our security is to write a new order, including green card holders, and fix all the problems with the first one. But he loves a fight, and he said see you in court, so we'll see what happens. I don't know if the Supreme Court will take it. I guess, I'm just not an expert in the courts. It will be a 4-4 decision, but it could tip either way. I know he has broad authority, but again, there are people that say that he would lose. So I see a fight.
Yeah, I'm one of them. I mean, 4-4, and then the Ninth Circuit ruling would stand.
Yeah.
But I actually think he could lose 5-3 at the Supreme Court level, because Anthony Kennedy is a bit of a wild card on these matters. So, I don't see a victory coming at the Supreme Court level. Which makes the how he fights such an interesting topic.
So, A.B., why do you think the government failed to offer any evidence that anyone from those 7 countries perpetrated an attack on Americans? They completely left that out of the executive order.
Well, I mean, they have the criteria, which is that these 7 countries were designated by the Obama administration and Congress. The Obama administration says it was actually Congress. It doesn't matter anymore. It was the way. Obviously, the way that this was drafted and implemented is problematic. They don't have any specific credible threat to offer up, and you could argue that they're among us right now, right? You can't disprove that, right? The threat could be upon us right now, but by someone that already got in, but. If there's a way to argue. You can argue both sides. He has broad authority. He's trying to protect the refugee stream from these countries that were designated potential travel threat in the past. And then on the other side, you could say we have no specific and credible threat. We've never had, most of the terrorist attacks here at least have been from homegrown Americans, naturalized Americans, or and at the same time. That we don't have, that without a specific threat, you can't, you can't make the argument with a 2-year vetting process.
Yeah,
people are pouring in right now, especially during this, this stay on it, that people are pouring in and they're evil, and that we're in danger simply because the ban was lifted.
Yeah,
Very hard argument to make.
Well, it seems to me that Justice Department made a big mistake here, and the Trump administration generally did. They should kind of follow their own disposition. Their disposition is the courts are politicized, and that you have courts acting as suprajudicial bodies. And I think they're right about that, generally speaking, and certainly in the Ninth Circuit. So given that belief, you should substantiate the claims you're making. And clearly, we have the intelligence community providing some information to both the Obama administration, and I guess that intelligence is still actionable and relevant today for the Trump administration. And one of the things the Seventh Circuit said about this, you haven't substantiated the threats posed by citizens from these countries coming to America. Well, there have to be intelligence estimates that provide some substantiation. That was the basis of Jay Johnson's actions, the Obama Homeland Security Secretary, and it's the basis of this executive order, at least reputedly. And so, produce, even under court seal, if it's sensitive information, produce that substantiation, and that argument dissipates.
Yeah, look, there are going to be people who see the posture of the administration and think that Trump is just choosing a fight because he doesn't like to back down. He doesn't want to redraft an order because it'll look like he lost. He wants to set up the courts, a fight all the way to the top of the court system so that if anything ever happens, he finds a way to say, it wasn't my fault. There's, obviously skepticism abounds about his intent and his posture. I think the best thing for him to do, as I said, if the courts are so politicized and we're under such a threat, is to come up with something that works.
Switching gears to some domestic policy issues, Tom Price confirmed last night, Paul Ryan saying Obamacare will be repealed this year. Trump sitting down with the airline CEOs yesterday and saying a tremendous, spectacular, phenomenal tax cut is coming. So what's the synchronicity, if you will? How is the leadership on the Hill going to move Obamacare repeal and replace while moving the tax cut plan? Which comes first? Where's the political capital going to be spent?
That's a good question, and the sequencing is very important. They have to go through Obamacare changes first because they're looking to find some money, and they're having a fight within their conference between the real fiscal purists and the flexible fiscal purists over whether or not you need to assure the covered public under this program that they're going to continue to have subsidized coverage. If you yank the subsidies to save money, the insurance companies leave. The pool's getting sicker, the coverage is getting worse. It's already in a death spiral. So if you provide the subsidies, which Republicans are loath to do, you assure the insurance companies, and they stick around, and it stays a more stable system until they change it. They don't want, obviously, to provide $7 billion worth of subsidies, but that's on their shoulders right now, and they're wrangling about that. So they want to do that, and then they would have to move on to tax reform. Tax reform, as you know, is a really tough task. Their own conference, Dave Camp of Michigan, when he was on the Ways and Means Committee, wrote up tax reform. It was rejected by Speaker Boehner and the rest of the conference. There's always something wrong. As you know, there's a million lobbies against their special loopholes. This will be a tough slog. So to say that they're going to bang through these two things before the August recess, before you're in a 2018 midterm cycle, is really tough. The members are realizing that, and they're trying, like I said, to keep it quiet, but to come up with something that they can move on Obamacare that will keep it stable, because they know it's going to take a really long time, and they want it to be this year, but they're afraid it might bleed into next year. They don't want to admit that. When Trump said next year, they said no, it'll be this year. But the fact is they don't have a replacement right now, and they're really having trouble talking about it. As one Republican member said to me on Wednesday, you can't message a product when you have no product.
Good, very good. Let's move on to Kellyanne Conway, because obviously she stepped in it a little bit by having her QVC moment on Fox and Friends when she plugged Ivanka Trump's clothing line. Is it possible that she didn't read the ethic rules?
Kellyanne Conway, I've known her a long time. She's a really smart woman, and she knows better than this, and so I wonder why she did it. But there's lots of internecine, inter-West Wing politics involved in all of this at all times. There are different factions rubbing up against each other and a lot of tension. And I think that she, I don't know, wanted to stick up for Ivanka, and that would please Ivanka and please her father or something, because she knows that you don't go on TV and hawk brands out of the Oval, out of the West Wing. So that was a mistake. I think we'll all move past it because we've been told that she was, quote-unquote, counseled. She, as some pointed out, she might have been counseled to keep doing it, but we'll see what happens. There were, obviously all these calls to the Office of Government Ethics. People are becoming read in on this stuff, and I don't know that they're, going to relent. He has a lot of issues, including with this hotel, that will continue to be a problem for the Republican members in charge of that on the Hill. And I don't think Kellyanne is going to do it again. But I can tell you she is a very sharp person, and she knew all about that.
Yeah, I mean, a flippant comment, and she obviously made a mistake and crossed the line, and she'll be chastened for it. But I want to pick up what you said about West Wing politics, because there were some rumors out earlier this week, too, that Trump was not necessarily happy with Sean Spicer's performance as press secretary at this point, a couple of weeks in. And is there any rumblings about a shakeup in the communication team this early in?
From what I'm told, Sean is on shaky ground, and most of it is not his fault. But the leaks that you've seen about Spicer, like I said in my column yesterday, whether it's Trump, blessing the leakings or not, the knives are out, and they're all talking about how, about Trump's displeasure with Spicer over the way he dresses, the Saturday Night Live skit in which he was lampooned, portrayed by a woman. It makes him look weak. He watches his every minute of the briefings and is not happy with his performance. Never wanted to hire him, wanted a woman. Reince Priebus pushed him into it, regrets it. So this is very tough because I think with all this, how could you not be in Spicer's head at this point? So he seems, in the last few briefings, to be really under just a tremendous amount of pressure. It's hard enough to come out, and he didn't have to face a question unbelievably yesterday about what Trump attempts, new attacks on John McCain. But there's plenty of stuff that Trump says every day that's very difficult to defend or deflect or explain. So it's a very tough job. And so while they say now they're looking for a communications director, which would be the bigger thinker, the long-term strategist on message, who would work behind the scenes, keeping Sean as space of the White House's press secretary, I'm not going to be shocked if we end up with two new people. The problem is that the communications director job is really hard to fill, and right now people are turning it down because they're seeing what's happening in the White House, and they think it's going to be a thankless job.
She is A.B. Stoddard, associate editor and columnist at RealClearPolitics.com, Fox News contributor. A.B., thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And joined us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.
English, please.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.